Hey guys, Jonathan and Susie Lamb here. Just wanted to take a moment and first thank everyone for your incredible support. Obviously,
when you look at the memorial service held for Joni Lamb at Gateway Church in Southlake, Texas, what immediately stands out is not simply who was there, but who was missing. For many people watching the service online and following the growing controversy surrounding Daystar Television Network, the absence of Jonathan Lamb, Joni's own son, became the defining image of the entire event. In a room filled with pastors, ministry figures, television personalities, and longtime friends, the silence surrounding Jonathan's absence seemed louder than every tribute spoken from the stage. The service itself was presented as a heartfelt celebration of Joni Lamb's life and ministry. Friends recalled decades of memories, stories of ministry work, travel, laughter, television broadcasts, and personal encouragement. Her daughters Rachel and Rebecca spoke emotionally about their mother's determination, her faith, and her refusal to stop working even while her health deteriorated. Doug Weiss, her husband of less than 3 years, described her as someone whose faith remained strong until the very end. The atmosphere inside Gateway Church was emotional and carefully orchestrated, designed to honor one of Christian television's most recognizable figures. But outside the walls of the church, many viewers were not focused only on grief. They were focused on the wider context surrounding the memorial, the unresolved scandals attached to Daystar, the controversy involving Gateway Church itself, and the very public fracture within the Lamb family. Joni Lamb passed away on May 7, 2026, at the age of 65. According to Daystar's official announcement, she had been dealing with serious health complications following a back injury that caused fractures in her spine. Her husband, Doug Weiss, had publicly confirmed weeks earlier that she suffered 2 hairline spinal fractures. No official cause of death beyond those complications was fully released publicly. The decision to hold the memorial at Gateway Church immediately sparked debate throughout Christian media circles because Gateway itself has been surrounded by scandal in recent years. The church's founder, Robert Morris, resigned after accusations emerged that he had sexually abused a young girl in the 1980s. In 2025, Morris pleaded guilty to multiple counts related to indecent acts with a child and later served jail time before registering as a sex offender in Texas. This timing became impossible to ignore. Just 1 day after Joni Lamb's death, reports surfaced that Gateway Church and Robert Morris had resolved a major legal dispute involving retirement compensation and financial settlements. So when viewers learned that Joni's memorial would be hosted at the very same church, many saw the optics as deeply troubling. For critics already concerned about accountability in Christian institutions, the memorial appeared to symbolize a much larger problem inside celebrity ministry culture, one where institutions continue operating despite scandals, while difficult questions are often avoided rather than answered. Then there was Jonathan Lamb. Jonathan had once been widely viewed as the future leader of Daystar Television Network. Before Marcus Lamb's death in 2021, multiple reports suggested Jonathan had effectively been positioned as the natural successor to continue leading the ministry. Marcus Lamb, who co-founded Daystar, passed away after complications from COVID-19. His death left Joni Lamb as president of the network and marked the beginning of a dramatic shift inside the organization. Over the next several years, tensions inside the family reportedly escalated behind the scenes before eventually exploding into public view. Jonathan Lamb and his wife Susie later accused a family member, publicly identified only as Pete, of sexually abusing their young daughter. They further alleged that Joni Lamb had been informed about the accusations and failed to respond appropriately. Joni strongly denied those claims. Investigations reportedly did not result in criminal charges due to insufficient evidence, but the damage inside the family appeared irreversible. By late 2024, Jonathan Lamb was officially fired from Daystar. Joni Lamb publicly claimed the dismissal involved performance issues and refusal to participate in mediation efforts. Jonathan, however, described an entirely different story. According to reports and interviews, he claimed he had raised concerns about financial practices inside the ministry, including expensive travel expenses, honeymoon costs allegedly charged to ministry accounts, and disagreements over Doug Weiss's role within the organization. One secretly recorded meeting involving evangelical figure Jimmy Evans became especially controversial online after portions were released publicly. Many viewers believed the recording revealed an atmosphere less focused on reconciliation and more focused on silencing objections within the ministry leadership. By the time Joni Lamb passed away in 2026, the family fracture had become one of the most discussed scandals in Christian broadcasting. Perhaps the most painful revelation came from Susie Lamb shortly after Joni's death. According to public statements, Jonathan and Susie claimed they were never informed that Joni was in her final moments, despite reportedly being nearby geographically at the time. Susie wrote publicly that they knew Joni was dying, but never received a call. Jonathan's public response was restrained and emotional. He posted a childhood photograph with his mother and simply asked for prayers for the family. There was no dramatic statement, no public attack, and no attempt to reignite the controversy during the mourning period. That silence itself became significant. Then came the memorial. Jonathan did not speak. He did not appear publicly in the circulated footage. His absence became symbolic of a family relationship that many now believe may never have healed before Joni's passing. Meanwhile, the figures who did appear on stage brought their own controversies and histories into the spotlight. Doug Weiss remains one of the most debated figures connected to Daystar. A psychologist and author specializing in marriage counseling and sexual addiction recovery, Weiss became increasingly visible on Daystar programming after Marcus Lamb's death. His rapid relationship and marriage to Joni Lamb drew scrutiny almost immediately. Reports later surfaced that Weiss had filed for divorce from his previous wife shortly after Marcus Lamb's death and married Joni within a relatively short time frame afterward. Former clients of Weiss's counseling programs also later came forward with allegations describing emotionally harmful counseling experiences, expensive treatment programs, and troubling therapeutic practices. Additionally, public licensing records showed Weiss had previously received formal admonitions related to professional conduct issues. These details significantly complicated public perception of his growing role inside Daystar leadership. At the memorial, however, Weiss presented himself simply as a grieving husband, honoring his wife. Rachel and Rebecca Lamb also spoke emotionally throughout the service, portraying their mother as tireless, faith-driven, and fully committed to ministry until the end. Their speeches resonated deeply with longtime Daystar viewers who had followed the family for decades. Yet for critics, the emotional tributes existed alongside unresolved allegations and financial controversies still hanging over the network. Several longtime Table Talk personalities also appeared during the memorial. Cindy Johnston, April Austin Simons, Kendra Kelly Dean, and Anna Kendall all spoke warmly about Joni's friendship, mentorship, and ministry influence. Yet even these appearances carried complicated undertones because many of these figures had remained connected to Daystar while numerous other ministries publicly distanced themselves from the network over the past 2 years. That exodus itself became one of the most damaging developments for Daystar's reputation. Major ministries and Christian personalities reportedly withdrew programming partnerships amid growing concerns surrounding governance, transparency, and scandal management within the organization. Financial questions also became central to the controversy. Investigative reporting alleged large increases in executive compensation, luxury travel expenses involving ministry aircraft, and high-end personal expenditures connected to Daystar leadership. One especially controversial report involved allegations surrounding honeymoon expenses reportedly charged to ministry accounts, accusations Daystar publicly denied. At the center of all this remains a much larger issue: accountability. For supporters of Daystar, Joni Lamb was a woman who dedicated her life to spreading Christian television across the world. Millions of viewers genuinely loved her, trusted her, and found comfort through Daystar programming during difficult periods in their lives. To them, the memorial represented a sincere farewell to someone who profoundly impacted Christian broadcasting. For critics, however, the memorial symbolized something very different: the continuation of a ministry culture where public image often appears prioritized over transparency, and where difficult questions are treated as attacks rather than legitimate concerns. That is why Jonathan Lamb's absence mattered so much. It represented more than a family disagreement. To many observers, it reflected the collapse of trust inside one of America's most powerful Christian television dynasties. A son who was once expected to inherit the future leadership of the ministry was now entirely absent from his mother's farewell service. And perhaps most striking of all, nobody on stage directly addressed that silence. Now attention turns toward the future of Daystar itself. Questions remain over who will ultimately lead the ministry, what role Doug Weiss may continue to play, whether Rachel and Rebecca Lamb will assume greater control, and whether Daystar can survive the ongoing controversies surrounding finances, governance, and family division. The ministry still maintains a massive audience and loyal donor base, but the scandals of recent years have undeniably changed public perception. Trust, once damaged, becomes incredibly difficult to rebuild, particularly for organizations built on spiritual authority and moral leadership. What happened at Gateway Church on May 18, 2026, therefore became much more than a memorial service. It became a public snapshot of a ministry standing at a crossroads, grieving, divided, scrutinized, and uncertain about what comes next. And in the middle of that room filled with speeches, memories, cameras, and carefully planned tributes, the most powerful statement may ultimately have been the empty place where Jonathan Lamb was not sitting. What do you think was really going on behind the scenes at the memorial, and was the tension between Joni and Jonathan impossible to ignore? Could there be more to this story than people realize? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more emotional and surprising updates. See you in the next one.